You didn't lose yourself by accident. Something inside you deliberately outgrew the life you were living. And now you're standing in the wreckage of who you used to be, wondering why nothing feels like home anymore. You keep reaching back, trying to return to the person you once were. But every time you get close, something deep in your chest pulls you forward like an invisible hand refusing to let you settle. The friendships that once felt like oxygen now feel like small rooms with no windows. And you smile through conversations while something ancient inside you is already walking out the door. You've tried to explain this feeling to people around you, but the words never come out right. Because how do you tell someone that you're grieving a version of yourself that is still technically alive? The goals you spent years chasing suddenly feel like they belong to a stranger. And the dreams that once lit you up now sit in the corner of your mind like photographs of someone else's life. You wake up some mornings, and before the world even gets a chance to speak, there is already this quiet ache sitting in your chest that you cannot name and cannot explain. This is not a breakdown. This is the most sacred and violent transformation a human being can go through. And the reason it feels like loss is because something real and true is finally refusing to stay buried. I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I am about to tell you is the one truth that will finally make sense of everything you have been silently carrying. There was a specific moment. You may not have named it then, but your soul felt it. The day you stopped fitting into the life you had so carefully built around yourself. It wasn't dramatic. There were no lightning bolts or grand revelations. It was just a quiet, devastating Tuesday where everything looked the same but felt completely different. You sat across from people you had known for years and felt a glass wall between you that no one else could see. And you smiled and nodded and laughed at the right moments, while something inside you was sitting in complete silence. That silence wasn't emptiness. It was the sound of your soul, refusing to keep pretending, refusing to keep shrinking, refusing to keep performing a version of you that no longer existed. You started noticing things that used to pass right through you. The way certain conversations drained you, like a leak you couldn't find. The way certain rooms made your chest tight the moment you walked in. The way certain environments that once felt safe now felt like cages you had outgrown. And the more aware you became, the more impossible it was to unknow what you now knew. Because awareness is a one-way door, and once you walk through it, the old world simply cannot hold you anymore. People around you started calling it a phase. They said you were overthinking. They said you needed to relax and just go back to being the person they remembered, as if you could simply fold yourself back into a shape that your bones had already outgrown. But you knew, even when you doubted yourself, even when the voices around you were louder than the voice within you, that what was happening was not confusion. It was the clearest and most honest thing you had ever felt in your life. The version of you that others kept calling back to was a version that had learned to survive by making itself invisible, by swallowing its needs, by applauding everyone else's dreams while quietly burying its own in the backyard of someday. And someday never came, not because you weren't ready, but because you were waiting for permission from a world that was never going to give it to you. And the transformation you are in right now is you finally stopping that wait. You are not falling apart. You are falling out of alignment with everything that was never truly yours to begin with. And there is a profound and terrifying freedom in finally letting those things go, even when your hands are shaking as you release them. This is the part of the story that nobody posts about. Nobody frames on their wall. Nobody celebrates with a party. This raw and ugly and sacred middle ground where the old you has already left and the new you has not fully arrived yet. But I need you to understand something with every cell in your body. The middle is not the end. The discomfort you are feeling right now is not a sign of failure. It is the exact feeling that every single person who ever transformed their life had to walk through without a map. You are not lost. You are in transition. And transition by its very nature feels like chaos before it reveals itself as the most intentional and necessary journey your soul has ever taken. There is a grief that has no funeral and no flowers. It is the grief of losing yourself not to death, but to growth. And the world gives you absolutely no permission to mourn it. Nobody prepares you for the loneliness of becoming. Nobody tells you that transformation always comes with a cost. And that cost is often the life and the people you built everything around. You grieve the friendships that no longer feed your soul. You grieve the simpler version of yourself who never asked hard questions. You grieve the comfort of certainty, even when that certainty was suffocating. The people around you keep calling for someone who is no longer there. They keep knocking on a door that no longer leads to the same room. And you love them. But love does not mean staying small for someone else's comfort. Your evolution is not a betrayal of the people who knew you before. It is the most honest and courageous thing you have ever offered this world. Because a person living in their truth will always be more powerful than a person performing a lie with a smile. And one day, the right people will find you exactly where your growth has taken you. They will not ask you to shrink or explain or apologize for who you have become. They will simply pull up a chair and say, I have been waiting for someone exactly like you. You have been so focused on what you are losing that you have not stopped to look at what is quietly being built inside you. Something stronger is emerging. Something that cannot be manipulated, cannot be guilted, cannot be pulled back into smallness by anyone. And that something has been under construction this entire time while you were busy grieving. The new you has boundaries that do not apologize for existing. The new you has a silence that is not emptiness. It is discernment. The new you has learned that peace is not found by fixing the outside world, but by finally stopping the war inside yourself. You used to say yes when every cell in your body was screaming. You used to twist yourself into impossible shapes just to make others comfortable in your presence. You used to hand people the power to define you and then wonder why you felt so empty. But that version of you is gone now, and it is not coming back. Not because something broke you, but because something finally woke up inside you. And what has been awakened cannot be put back to sleep, no matter how uncomfortable that awakening makes the people around you. The person you are becoming does not need the validation that the old you was desperate for. The person you are becoming chooses rooms that feel like expansion, not rooms that feel like survival. The person you're becoming is not louder or more aggressive. They are simply done being invisible. And yes, this version of you will lose some people along the way. Not because you became worse, but because you finally became real. And real will always feel threatening to the people who built a relationship with your performance. Let me tell you something that nobody is brave enough to say out loud. The most dangerous thing you can do right now is go back. Not because the past was evil, but because you were slowly dying inside it and calling it comfort. Staying the same has a price that nobody puts on the label. It costs you your mornings, waking up already exhausted before the day begins. It costs you your dreams, watching them collect dust on a shelf you stopped reaching for. It costs you your voice, swallowing words that deserve to be spoken. It costs you your identity, becoming whatever shape the room needed you to be. It costs you your life, not all at once, but one quiet compromise at a time. And the saddest part is that most people pay this price every single day without ever realizing they are paying it. They call it being responsible. They call it being realistic. They call it just how life is. But what they are really doing is trading their one irreplaceable life for the approval of people who will not even remember them in 10 years. You felt this. That is why you are here right now watching this. Something in you refused to keep paying that price in silence. Something in you drew a line and said, "Not one more day, not one more version of me that I do not recognize." That moment, that refusal, was not weakness breaking down. That was your soul finally deciding that your life was worth fighting for. That was the bravest and most defining moment you have had in years, even if it felt like falling apart at the time. Here is the truth that your soul already knows, but your fear has been too loud to let you hear. You were never going to go back. Not really. Not fully. Not in any way that mattered. Because the moment you tasted even one breath of who you truly are, the old life lost its grip on you forever. Every single thing you have been through, every loss, every silence, every night you cried without knowing why, every relationship that ended, every version of yourself you had to bury, every door that closed so hard it shook the walls. None of it was punishment. Every single piece of it was preparation. You were being prepared for a life that your old self was simply not equipped to carry. You were being hollowed out so that something greater could fill you completely. You were being stripped of everything that was never yours, so that what remained would be unbreakable. And now here you stand. Not perfect, not fully arrived, not without scars, but awake in a way that most people will spend their entire lives running from. Alive in a way that cannot be faked, cannot be performed, and cannot be taken from you by anyone. So let them call it a phase. You know what it really is. Let them wait for the old you to return. You know that person is gone. Let the world misunderstand your silence, your boundaries, your transformation. Because the world has always misunderstood people who were becoming something it had never seen before. The greatest chapters of your life have not been written yet. The relationships that will actually see you have not found you yet. The version of you that will look back on this exact moment and say, "That was the turning point." That version is already on their way. So do not go back. Not for comfort, not for approval, not for the illusion of safety that the old life promised and never delivered. Go forward. Even when your hands are shaking, even when the path is invisible, even when nobody around you understands why you keep choosing the harder and truer road. Go forward. Because everything you have ever truly wanted exists on the other side of the person you are still becoming. And remember this, on the nights when the doubt creeps back in, and the fear gets loud, and you wonder if any of this was worth it, remember that you did not come this far to only come this far. Remember that there is no going back, and that the most powerful words you will ever say to yourself are simply these three: I choose forward.